Imagine being alone at night, the world outside, silent. When suddenly, a noise breaks the calm footsteps that shouldn't be there, a door creaking open, or the faint sound of someone moving in the shadows. Home is supposed to be the safest place we know, but for some people, that sense of safety is shattered in the most terrifying ways. Tonight, we're diving into 3 scary true home intrusion horror stories that will make you rethink just how secure your walls and locks really are. Each story you'll hear comes from real experiences. Ordinary people who never thought something like this could happen to them. These aren't ghost tales or urban legends. They are chilling encounters with intruders who stepped right into the lives of unsuspecting families and individuals. The fear of hearing a stranger's presence inside your home, the helplessness of being caught off guard, and the lingering trauma afterwards, these are moments that leave scars far deeper than the eye can see. In the stories ahead, you'll hear about sudden midnight break-ins, eerie sounds that turned out to be much worse than imagined, and face-to-face encounters that people will never forget. Each one reveals how quickly a normal night can turn into a nightmare. So turn off the lights, settle in, and get ready for 3 of the most disturbing true home intrusion horror stories. Because sometimes, the real monsters aren't hiding under the bed, they're the ones who find a way inside. The first story begins on what seemed like a normal evening. A young couple had just settled in after dinner, the soft hum of the television filling the quiet of their small home. Outside, the neighborhood was calm, the kind of place where everyone knew each other, and doors were usually left unlocked. But comfort can be deceiving, and that night would soon take a turn they never expected. As the couple prepared to head to bed, they both heard something faint to shuffle, almost like shoes dragging across the wooden floor downstairs. At first, they brushed it off, telling themselves it was just the house settling. Yet minutes later, the sound came again, this time sharper, more deliberate. A chill ran down their spines. They looked at each other, silently asking the same question: was someone inside? In another story, a single mother tucked her kids into bed, relieved that they had finally drifted off after a long day. She sat down with a book, but the feeling of being watched wouldn't leave her. The house creaked unusually, and then, faintly, she swore she heard the sound of breathing that didn't belong to anyone in her family. She froze, her heart pounding, every instinct screaming that something was wrong. And then there's the college. A student who had just moved into an old rental house, living alone for the first time, felt exciting. But that excitement faded the night she heard slow, heavy footsteps in the hallway when she knew for sure she hadn't left her door unlocked. The young couple stood frozen at the top of the stairs, trying to make sense of what they had just heard. The man whispered that it might just be the wind, but the woman shook her head. She knew the sound was too heavy, too intentional. Slowly, they turned off the bedroom light, leaving only the dim glow from the street lamp outside. Every second of silence felt longer, as though the house itself was holding its breath. Then, faintly, they heard the metallic click of something brushing against the doorframe downstairs. Their safe little home suddenly felt like a trap. For the single mother, the tension only grew. She tried convincing herself it was her imagination, but when she stepped into the hallway, she noticed something that made her skin crawl. The window in the living room, which she was sure she had locked earlier, was now cracked open. She tiptoed back toward her children's room, her mind racing. Should she call for help? Should she check the room herself? The fear of making a wrong move felt unbearable, but the thought of her kids sleeping only a few feet away made her heart race even harder. Meanwhile, the college student's night turned more unsettling. The footsteps in her hallway didn't stop. They moved slowly, pausing as if whoever was there was listening. She grabbed her phone, but when she tried to turn on the flashlight, her screen froze for a moment, leaving her in near darkness. In that instant, she realized she wasn't just scared, she was completely vulnerable, alone in a place she thought she could trust. The couple could hear the faint creak of the staircase, as if weight was pressing down on each step. Every sound grew louder in the silence of the night, echoing through the walls. The man reached for the closest object he could find, a heavy lamp, while the woman clutched her phone, her hands trembling as she tried to dial. But before she could press the button, the footsteps stopped. The silence that followed was almost worse. Stretching into the dark like a warning, they held their breath, waiting for the next move. But the quiet only made the fear sink deeper. Across town, the single mother stood frozen outside her children's room, straining to listen. The faint sound of movement came again, this time closer, as though someone was brushing against the walls. Her first instinct was to protect her kids, but with every step she took, her nerves screamed louder. The open window flashed in her mind, and she realized whoever had come in might still be somewhere inside. She gently pushed her children's door closed, her heart racing as she heard the creak of the floorboards in the living room. Whoever was there wasn't leaving. Meanwhile, the college student sat on the edge of her bed, phone still useless in her shaking hands. The footsteps had stopped, but now she could hear something even more unsettling, the sound of her bedroom doorknob being tested. It rattled softly at first, then more firmly, as if someone on the other side was deciding whether to come in. Her breath caught in her throat, every nerve in her body alive with fear, knowing she was only seconds away from coming face to face with whoever was in the house. The couple's fear spiked when, after a long stretch of silence, the sound of a door closing echoed from below. It wasn't their bedroom door, but one somewhere deeper in the house. The man motioned for his partner to stay quiet, but she pointed to something he hadn't noticed. Shadows shifting at the bottom of the staircase. Faint outlines moving in the dim light. They weren't just dealing with one intruder. The realization that there could be more than one person inside made the air feel heavier, pressing down on them with dread. For the single mother, the night took a darker turn when she heard the faint hum of her back door swinging open. She had locked it earlier, she was certain, but now it creaked against the frame as if someone else had found their way in. Panic washed over her, as she realized there might not be a single intruder, but two, entering from different parts of the house. She could hear her children stirring behind the closed door, unaware of the danger only feet away. Every sound felt magnified, the scrape of shoes against the floor, the shift of air as someone moved closer. She knew she had to act, but the fear of being caught too soon paralyzed her. Back in the college student's small rental, the rattling at the doorknob suddenly stopped, replaced by a sound that froze her blood, the faint click of her window latch being moved. She spun toward the sound, realizing with horror that whoever was in her hallway wasn't alone. Someone else was trying to come in from outside, and in that moment, she understood she was surrounded. The sense of isolation turned to sheer terror, as the walls of her safe space seemed to close in, leaving no clear way out. The couple braced themselves as the shadows at the bottom of the stairs shifted closer. Just as the man raised the lamp, ready to defend them both, the piercing wail of a car alarm erupted outside. The sound startled the intruders, and in that instant, they bolted through the front door, slamming it shut behind them. The couple rushed to the window, their hearts still pounding, and caught a glimpse of two figures sprinting into the night. Relief flooded in, but it was shaken when they saw their back door wide open, proof that the intruders had planned more than just a simple break-in. For the single mother, the creak of footsteps came to an abrupt stop as red and blue lights flashed faintly through her curtains. A neighbor, noticing the strange movements around her house, had called the police. The intruder slipped out through the open window just moments before officers arrived, leaving behind muddy footprints and the lingering terror of what might have happened if no one had intervened. She held her children close, comforted by their safety, but the image of that unlocked window haunted her long after the night ended. The college student's story reached its breaking point when the doorknob twisted violently. She screamed, and in the chaos, the intruders seemed to panic. Heavy footsteps retreated down the hall, and at the same time, the window slammed shut as if whoever was outside had abandoned the plan. When police later searched the property, they found marks on both the door and the window, clear signs of a coordinated attempt, but the twist came when the landlord admitted she wasn't the first tenant to experience it. Others before her had left suddenly, unable to handle the strange and terrifying visits that no one could fully explain. In the aftermath of these terrifying nights, each person was left changed. The couple who once trusted their quiet neighborhood never looked at their home the same way again. They installed alarms, cameras, and heavy locks. But even with all the precautions, the memory of footsteps echoing in the dark lingered. For them, the scariest part wasn't just the break-in, it was knowing how easily their sense of safe